People talk a lot about purpose and life purpose, and it's hugely important for mental health to have a sense of purpose and a sense of, you know, this is why I'm getting up in the morning and this is why I'm doing what I do, and everybody wants to matter and everybody wants to be a part of something that matters.
Yeah, it is. I can attest to that. That's one of the things that gets me up in the morning, for sure.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's why you do what you do, right?
Absolutely. So you talk a lot about, or I mentioned a lot about the this idea of like you do have quantitative but also qualitative metrics. So obviously there's some methods that you're using to measure these things, but then there's also just probably conversations you're having to get them to start speaking into like how they feel and what's coming up and what's showing up. So how might someone who is wanting to see that their mental health is, let's say for instance, they're not coming to the mental gym, but they want to continue to see how are they improving? What's the trends? What does that look like? What are some methods you might recommend that they utilize in order to bring these things to the surface?
To bring how they're feeling to the surface?
Yeah, like how they're improving. I mean, obviously journaling is something, happiness questionnaires, all that kind of stuff. But what things, or I guess an easier question would be, what things do you use to measure the success of your clients?
Yeah. I'm going to answer that question first, not specifically to mental health and fitness, but just kind of an overall. I find sometimes the simplest stuff here is the most effective. So we like to do this thing where I'll say to you like, hey, Woody, let's look at a scale from 1 to 10. 1 is you showing up at your worst. It's the worst version of you. You're living your worst life. Describe that however you want, but just have don't even need to describe it. 10 is you showing up as the best version of yourself. This is the best you. You're living your best life. And it's not perfect. 10 isn't perfect. This isn't like a multiple choice math test in the 6th grade. It's just, there's a best and there's a worst. And yes, your best is still going to have ups and downs. It's still normal life. But best, worst, where do you feel like you are right now? You don't need a whole scientific breakdown for that. Just about everybody you ask can give you an answer. Yeah. Right there on the spot. And it doesn't need to be like, oh, I think I'm at like a 5.42. It's not that. But they can say to you like, oh, probably around a 5 or a 6, or I'm around a 7, or I feel like I'm around a 4, right? And that to me is one of the most accurate measurements of who they are and how they're showing up. And then when you follow up with them and you'll say, hey, that same scale, where do you feel like you are now? And they're like, you know what? I was at a 6 and now I feel like I'm at an 8. That to me has shown like the biggest correlation to data is that scale from 1 to 10. So when you ask somebody like on a burnout scale from 1 to 10, same idea. Where do you feel like, how burnt out do you feel? Now, how burnt out do you feel later? Like kind of like, you can call it before and after, but we're still talking about throughout a process. I find that stuff's it's the best check-in. It's the best check-in with yourself. I was here. Now I feel like I'm here, or I am here. That stuff's great. And I find that the more complicated we get, the harder it is for people to pay attention to and really measure with themselves and guide it. It can be something like you mentioned, keeping a journal. It can be something as simple as how many days would you classify or would you label? And I'm not a big fan of labels, but just for this, what we're talking about here, how many days would you call good days? How many days would you call great days? And how many days would you call not so good days or terrible days? And you could, add a couple of things in there if you want to, but keep it simple. And just track that. Track that for a while. Great day, great day, great day. Crap day, good day, good. Do you know what I mean? And you can, over time, over a month, you're going to see a pattern of each week. I had this many great days, this many good days or okay days, and this many lousy days. Don't overthink it. Just kind of do that. I think even something as simple as that is really, really effective, because then you can look at it and you're going to see that again, like when we talk about that 10 on that scale, it can be a mental scale, it can be a life scale, it can be whatever you want. When you're talking about that 10, again, you're still going to have ups and downs. You're still going to have ebbs and flows of life. But what you do have is you have more consistently great days. Yeah. And your bad days, they don't run on as nearly as much. It's not like one day goes into 2 and 5 and weeks and months. They tend to be shorter. You snap back faster. You get back to your elevated baseline, really is what it is. And I think something like that, as something really as simple as that, is a great thing for people to do. And you learn about yourself. And the more you learn about yourself, as you know, the more you learn about yourself, the more equipped you are to make positive change and to keep making positive change and keep that momentum building. So I'm a big fan of anything you can do to learn something about yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think that 1 to 10 scale is phenomenal. I think you sharing that kind of the trick you use, because every time I use 1 to 10s a lot, but all the perfectionists out there, you can't get a 10, right? I've almost gotten to the point where I'm like, okay, the 9's the best because the 10 doesn't exist. I like how you shared with them. This is my aha moment from the conversation, that idea of like 10's not perfect. 10 is just the best, knowing that there is no perfect, knowing that there's still going to be ups and downs, knowing that you can have bad days and a great life.
Yeah.
So I think that that's really important. And again, it's, to your point, it's a trend, right? Taking snapshots in the morning, in the evening, in the middle of the day, right? There's a gentleman by the name of Louis Tay who does occupational psychology here at Purdue University, where I work. And he actually came up with an app called Expowell, like Experiment Wellness. And it's actually an app that researchers can use to send sporadically scheduled questions like that to clients or to subjects in research situations. So in the middle of the day, because you're going to be biased if you always do it in the morning.
Absolutely.
And you're not a morning person, right? If for instance, when I came home, I was on a high because I love guest speaking, and it went really well. It could have gone the other way, in which case I probably wouldn't have been, I probably wouldn't have given you a 9 where I would have today. And so it just sends out regular, but not consistent or not routine, not scheduled questions like that. And I think that's really powerful as well. So we did a little conversing. I asked him about, like, are you going to get this out for coaches? Because this could be really helpful for coaches to do as well, to really get good data, because it just pops up on their phone. They answer it right there in the moment based off how they feel. And that can be a little bit more probably realistic feedback. But to your point, I think just the trend, right? How are you feeling? Keep it simple. It's hard to put logic and words to feelings, so try to keep it as simple as you can, and then just monitor that trend and see how it goes, and then
see how you're feeling. I find that people generally know how they're feeling. Right? I feel this way, I feel that way. Again, don't overcomplicate it. Simple is good here. And to your point, I absolutely agree. When we talk about your 10, and we call it living your 10, when people say, like, well, how do I know if I get there? And it's like, if you look at the very last day of your life, then you can say that you've lived your 10, but every day from now until then, you're living it. It's an active thing. There's no, I've done it. Do you golf? Do you like to golf by chance?
No. Nope.
So,
but I'm very interested in the analogy. I'm familiar enough with it.
All right. I like golf very much. I'm not very good at it anymore, just because I don't play. It's, like, if you're not putting it in, you're not going to be any good. But there was once upon a time where I played a lot, and I got pretty decent at it. But one of the things I love the most is, no matter how hard I worked at it, there was no, like, perfect. And no matter how good I got, there was no perfect. And you can watch pro players on TV, the best players in the world. They're not perfect. They're making mistakes. They're hitting bad shots. It's not like they're taking one shot a hole and scoring an 18 on the round, right? And there's this massive fluctuation. One day they'll shoot a 65, and the next day they'll shoot a 75. And it's like, these are the best players in the world doing that. And the thing that I love about it, and it was similar to, like, CrossFit, and really, I grew up being a big hockey player, but parenting's the same way. Marriage is the same thing. Like, show me a perfect marriage. Show me a perfect parental experience. These things don't exist. It's really just your best. How can you keep moving in that direction? Keep getting a little bit better. Have the tools and the skills to ride the ups and downs as they come, because they absolutely are a part of it, especially if you're challenging yourself to be better. Like you said, it doesn't get easier, you get better. And I just find that for certain people, that journey is just so exciting. It's so great. It's so, like, I remember when I started CrossFit, it was like maybe one of my very first days, and the owner of the gym, we were just talking, and he told me it takes 2 years to start to get good at this, to start to get good at it. And I remember thinking at the time, I was like, I bet you that scares a lot of people off, because they're like, I want to see, like, instant results. And it's not that you don't see instant results, you do. But you're talking about a level of, like, actually starting to get good at it. I remember thinking, that's so cool. I think
Yeah.
that's awesome. It's going to take me 2 years to start to get good. All right, let's go. Let's start that journey right now. Um, and you learn in that first 2 years. It's not like you're bad at it because you're getting better and you're getting better and you're getting better. But I just think that's an attitude and a mentality that's going to serve people so well, is to just focus on improving. That's it. Just get better.
Hence the name Next Better,
Yeah, there you
the name
go.
of my company. That's exactly where it came from, is this concept of even the best try to get better, right? No, there's no pro athlete, Matt Fraser, LeBron James, Wayne Gretzky, like they were the best and they were constantly striving to get better, because there is no perfect, to your point. There's always ways that we can improve. And I think a big part of this, and something I think some people struggle with, you and I may be wired this way, but a growth mindset is not something that people often fall into. Sometimes it's trained, sometimes they kind of grow up with it through parenting or whatever it happens to be. But that's really a, a big, I wouldn't say a requirement, but it doesn't hurt to have this idea that there's ways that I can improve, that failure is helpful in a learning opportunity. Like it's going to take 2 years. That means I have a bunch of opportunities for me to improve in this thing. And I would say that that's probably something that people can sometimes struggle with if they don't consistently work on it.
Consistently work on it and have the structure, right? The structure, the support, the programming, if you're just doing it on your own, again, I just feel like some people can do it. Like some people are incredibly disciplined. They have an exceptional amount of willpower. They really are a rare breed, but there are people who can do it. And then I think for the rest of us, we need more support than that to be consistent, right? To be showing up that way. Fortunately, for a lot of things, it doesn't take 2 years to start to get good. But I love that. Like in the mental gym, it doesn't take you 2 years to start to get good, but it also doesn't happen in a day.
Yeah.
Right. It happens shorter than 2 years, but you can also keep improving and keep growing. And eventually you keep working at it. You just keep going. You keep sharpening that sword and showing up better and better. And like you said, there's a range there from anything from someone who's a relative beginner all the way up to the best in the world. And wherever you are now, again, you're just taking another step in the direction. It's not about, I need to be the next Michael Jordan or LeBron James or Wayne Gretzky. It's not that. It's just, how can I be the best version of me? Because that's who I want to be.
Yeah. Yeah. And recognizing that that's enough. That's Jesse Itzler, who has a company or a brand or mentality of like build your life resume. Pretty successful entrepreneur. He talks about this idea like you only have to do something 11 minutes a day for a year to become better than, I think it was 94% of the people on earth, right?
Okay.
Like if you do one thing for 11 minutes a day for a year, you'll be better than most human beings, right? And that's and I didn't look at the science behind that. I'm going to be honest. I didn't research it. I didn't do a lot of studies on it, right? But the sentiment is this: it doesn't take a lot of effort. Again, it's easy, or it's simple, but it's not necessarily easy. But if you're consistent with it and you just continue to try, look for areas for growth, and it's a deliberate practice. A lot of us know the 10,000 hours mentality, right? Mm-hmm. But deliberate practice, not just hold a harmonica in your hand while you watch TikTok videos, right? But that's what it can take to be better every day to the point where it's going to be functional for you, and asking yourself what's enough, and then build to that.
Yeah. Can I just actually comment on something that you just mentioned?
Please.
You said your best you is enough. And I think it's so much more than that. I'm a big believer in zones of genius, that we all have our zones of genius. And to try to be the next great athlete, well, maybe that's not your thing, right? Like, where can you be great? Where's that best part of you? People talk a lot about purpose and life purpose, and it's hugely important for mental health to have a sense of purpose and a sense of, this is why I'm getting up in the morning and this is why I'm doing what I do. And everybody wants to matter and everybody wants to be a part of something that matters. I think we all have the same purpose is, who can you be and what can you do that allows you to make your best contribution to the world and hopefully make the world a little bit of a better place. And within that, if we were all trying to measure up to the same standard or be the same person or the same type of person, it's just like, it wouldn't work. I think one of the biggest challenges that we face in this society is that we're all trying to measure up to some standard that we see on TikTok or Instagram or something like that. And we know how harmful that is for our mental health and for our confidence and for our happiness and so on and so on. But what if we just really focused on, hey, I'm not going to compare myself to anybody else? I mean, I should say this, there are some situations where it's healthy to compare, but what if I really just compared myself to who I want to be? So I'm going to compare myself to who I was yesterday and to who I want to be tomorrow. And if we've really focused on that, you're going to see people reaching a level of potential that they really never really understood before or never thought was possible. Because like when I was growing up, I remember thinking like, okay, you can be great academically, you can be great athletically. If you are a singer maybe or something, you have like a talent for singing, but it seemed like there was a pretty narrowly defined path for realizing potential. And I was like, well, I was a good student, but I wasn't a great one. I was a good athlete, but I wasn't the best one. I couldn't sing, and I took singing lessons, and I still wasn't able to sing. So I was like, so what is it for me? And you realize that if you spend your life trying to measure up to someone else's standard of who they are instead of who you are, I mean, for one, you're never going to live your 10 because that 10 is yours. It's right there in the name. Live your 10. It's not somebody else's 10. And at the very best, you'll live like a 7 or an 8 trying to copy somebody else. So I don't know if that was something that just kind of rolled off your tongue there, that enough spot. But I think we think about that a lot, and people say like, I am enough. I am enough. I'm like, nah, it's just don't even worry about what's enough and what's not enough. Just point yourself in a direction and keep going and get to discover who you're capable of being and who you could be. I think that's just a wonderful gift that everybody has. We just got to take the gift and run with it.
Yeah, I can appreciate that. So, Cory, as we wrap up, what are some things that you might suggest to the people that are listening and want to know more in this world? I call it the thinkers and the doers. For the doers out there, what are some habits, daily, weekly, monthly, whatever you think, that they can start to work on creating that are going to help them in this realm?
I'll start by saying, I think that we talked a lot about physical fitness today. I think probably even more than we talked about mental fitness. We all have mental health, right? Just like we all have physical health, we all have mental health. And I'm sure this is something you've talked about before, but we really need to think about creating a mentally fit lifestyle the same way we would think about a physically fit lifestyle. And even people who aren't into physical fitness, you can certainly live a mentally fit lifestyle. And so to do that, we have to understand that it's not something that happens when we just cross our fingers and hope for the best. It really is something that we need to be intentional about, right? So just with that awareness, and you talked about awareness earlier, what is it that you can start doing to point yourself down a path of living a mentally fit lifestyle? Is it something like the mental gym? Is it not something like the mental gym? It doesn't need to be, but just find something that you can that resonates with you, that sticks with you, that you feel great about, and that helps you be better. So for the doers out there, there's a ton of things I could suggest, like we talked about habits like meditation and exercising. I love going for walks in the woods. Anybody can go take a 10-minute walk around the block at lunchtime, which is a really great thing to do. Focus on your sleep patterns, right? Trying to wake up at the same time, go to sleep at the same time, make sure you get a good amount of sleep. Eat things that are good for you. You don't have to be, a fanatic about what you eat. Some people are, but I don't know. I follow very simple food rules. I try to eat real food and not a lot of added sugar. And I can, it's simple, right? I can just kind of stick to that thing. Don't eat processed food or just not much of it. Balance. So the doers, I think what's so important about the doing part of it is to, and you, I think you mentioned this earlier, is to not overwhelm yourself. Don't try to change 10 things at once. Pick one thing, maybe two, but pick one thing and just focus on that one thing. That one thing, don't think of it as the one thing that's going to change your life. It's just that one thing that's going to make your life better. And as you compound habits and you compound improvements in your life gets a whole lot better. So for those doers, I mean, there's a million exercises I could recommend, mental exercises, and there's a million, thought exercises and decision-making exercises. And behavior exercises and things like that. I don't know if that's what you were looking for, or you were looking for something a little more general, but happy to share any of it.
No worries. I was looking for you to share what you thought was important for people to hear, and I think you said it absolutely. Keeping it simple, being consistent. I'd rather see you do one habit for a year than 365 habits for a day.
Oh yeah. And also,
Yeah.
again, we talked about it, just start. Like when people say things like, I don't have time to exercise, I would counter that with like, do you have time to do 5 push-ups a day?
Yeah.
Because if you do 5 push-ups a day, you're doing a whole lot more push-ups in a year than if you did no push-ups in a day. And when people are like, oh yeah, so it's like, okay, just start. Maybe do like 5 minutes of exercise or something like that,
Yeah.
right? Just something so small that you can't screw it up. Just start
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
And then just do that. Just do that consistently. And when you feel so confident that you've got that on lockdown, now you can look it up again, but
Yep.
we'd put too much pressure on ourselves. Oh, I got to work out 5 days a week, 2 hours a day. It's like, or I got to cut out all sugar from my diet. You're going to fail.
Yep.
Don't fail, succeed.
There you go. Find ways to succeed. I like that. So that's for the doers. How about for the thinkers? A book to read. I can see a lot of familiars in the behind your shoulder there, but book to read, podcast to listen to. What do you suggest?
Okay, so books. I'm probably going to go with stuff that's not like earth-shattering stuff here, but some of my favorite books. We talked about habits today. I think Atomic Habits is something that everybody should read. It's just such a fantastic breakdown of how we have habits and why we have habits and how to build them. And I think it's so relatable. So I highly recommend that. I'm also a big fan of one of the classics, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I think that whether you're newer on your journey or you're someone who's very far along your journey, you check back in with those 7 habits and see where you're at and see how you can tighten up and improve yourself, or sharpen the sword, as they like to say. I think that's a great one. I also love a book by, and I like some of the books you recommended too. I'm a Simon Sinek fan as well. I think The Infinite Game was his best book, as good as Start With Why was. I really like The Infinite Game. I'm also going to recommend one by a gentleman named Trevor Moawad, who unfortunately has passed away since writing this book, but it's called It Takes What It Takes. And it's all about neutral thinking and the power of neutral thinking, not, you mentioned before, negative thoughts. And it's just about really balancing this out, having a neutral perspective, an objective view of things, which I think is an incredibly valuable tool for all of us, for performance. I mean, you name it. So I don't know. There's 4 books that I think are all worth a read.
I like that. And I got one that I've never heard of. So I'm definitely going to check out It Takes What It Takes. I love the idea of reducing your attachment to ideas and letting go of like what you perceive as negative or positive about it, right? Like Master Oogway from Kung Fu Panda, for those who have kids, or just like Kung Fu Panda, right? Like there is no good or bad. There just is.
It just
and
is.
So
I got to say, it took me a long time to grasp that concept. I remember when I first heard it, I'm like, what do you mean? Things are obviously good or bad, but over time, the more you sit with it, the more you understand that it's true.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, and I would hate for anybody to believe that I'm like the master of it. I agree with it and I understand its concept. And I'm still constantly practicing it because I still get pissed when people cut me off in traffic, and I still get mad when somebody interrupts me in a guest speaking, and I still get frustrated when my kid's not doing what I ask them to. But being aware, right? We've talked about that today.
I mean, we're not. I don't know about you. I don't think of myself as like a Buddhist monk who's in Zen all the time. It's like, we're normal people living normal lives, trying to be our best and do what we can do. And I think we need a lot more grace and kind of compassion for the journey, that, you don't need to be like a false god of personal development, and don't be a hypocrite. Just be honest about your journey, and that it's not perfect, and it's probably never going to be perfect, but you're just trying to get better every day. And I think that's an important thing for people to understand too.
I love that. Cory, where can they find you? Where can they learn more about you? How do they connect with you to keep following you?
LinkedIn is the best place to do that. I hang out on LinkedIn a little bit. So Cory Chadwick on LinkedIn is a great spot. You can also check out the Mental Gym. We're actually just about to go through a bit of a rebrand, a name change, a new website address. So I'll give you the website address, and hopefully you can find from the current website, find our way to the new website, and that's mentalgymlife.com. But really, probably by the time this airs, that's going to be a different address. And yeah, those are the best places. Come say hi on LinkedIn. I love meeting awesome people. I love connecting with people who are, no matter how, where you are on that journey of being mentally fit, of growing as a person and as a leader, being your best self. Connect, say hi, tell me a little bit about you.
That's how we got here to where we are today.
Right? Yeah.
Cory, appreciate you sharing your journey and continuing to help people while you go through yours.
Thanks, Woody. Appreciate it.
Awesome.